Councillors, I put agenda item PSR 20/015, Batemans Bay Regional Aquatics Arts and Leisure Centre. Can I have a mover and seconder, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I am putting a motion forward for deferment of this matter.
So, councillors, you have a proposed motion in front of you for debate. It needs a second, presuming Councillor Constable, you're moving it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, yes.
And Councillor Main, I'm taking it you're seconding it? So, councillors, you have a proposed motion in front of you now. I'm going to open it up for debate and questions. Right, Councillor. Councillors, look, I'm just going to make a couple of points on this proposed motion. And I'd just like to state by saying that the tender prices cannot be given to the Audit Committee. I'd also like to point out to councillors that the Audit Committee has already had a number of briefings on this matter, including a specific briefing by the consultants. And I'd also like to point out that Councillor Constable could have, in the last week or 2 weeks, requested an extraordinary meeting for this to have been dealt with prior to it coming to the chamber today. They're just the comments I'm going to make on that. So, councillors, are there any other questions or debate on the motion? Councillor May.
Yeah, just a quick question, just on that point, in terms of what can and can't be shared with the risk audit risk committee. How does the audit risk committee truly assess risk and any related governance, etc., issues on such a matter of this, given the extent of the financials on the table, if they can't have access to the tender price? I understand, I think you were saying that there's the governance and the commercial in confidence, but are we saying that we can't share this sort of information with our audit and risk committee?
That's correct, but I'll get the General Manager to just give you the
Thank you.
regulatory framework around that, Councillor Munn.
So, through the Mayor, firstly, in relation to, there are 2 overriding legislation that you need to be aware of. One is the Local Government Act, and under the Local Government Act, you would have heard me read at various times going into confidential that it is confidential if it's commercial information of a confidential nature that would be disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of a person who supplied it, or confer a commercial advantage on a competitor of the council. Also, just to quote the local government tendering guidelines, which specifically says that council must not disclose tender information received from tenderers, that is intellectual property, proprietary, commercial in confidence or otherwise confidential. And then it goes on in relation to that until council has resolved the outcome of the tender. So it's very clear that it cannot be disclosed to any other person who has resolved to either accept, modify or reject the tender.
Councillor McGinley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Getting away from the actual tender costs, I'm also wondering, has the Audit and Risk Committee been made aware of the total proposed cost of this project that we're going to be voting on today? And are they aware of the gap between the amount we already have for grants and loans and that total budget, and where the sources of that additional funding is going to be sought from?
Through the Mayor, that has not happened because Council cannot divulge the contract amount. So therefore, it's all in the same budget.
Just to continue, regardless of the contract or the proposed tender contract, we'll be voting today on approving a budget of X amount of dollars. Has the Audit Committee been made aware of the total of that budget which we are proposing to pass today, regardless of what the tender cost is?
Through the Mayor, no, that's not been the case because it's been commercial in confidence to go to Council as the decision makers.
Councillor Main.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just through you another question. I just want to pick up again on this point on the role of the Audit and Risk Committee, acknowledging that we have two councils that sit on that committee, plus its government-appointed auditors, plus 3 esteemed members of our community who are locked into confidentiality. One of the issues and the question is, how do they do their job? And this is looking at the risk component of it. Given there's a business case, which we're going to discuss today, although I understand it's commercial confidence again, but if there's a risk about the operating nature of this and how we're going to pay for it year in, year out, do we then vote, accept the risk, and then go back to the Audit Committee and say, what do you think of the risk we just voted on? I just don't understand how they get to do that after we vote. I would have thought they would have been part of the holistic governance review and preparation for this.
Through the Mayor, the Audit Committee have been fully briefed on the operating costs, and that's where the Mayor indicated that they had access to our consultant, and the consultant went through the briefing, the confidential briefing in relation to not the tender price, but the operating, and the Audit Committee had a special session with the consultant on the operating costs going forward.
Sure. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Brown.
Noting that you've sort of got to try and catch me in the question so I can actually keep some time to debate. Can a general manager, I think there seems to be a bit of a misunderstanding of the role of the Audit Committee and the responsibilities they have. Can you please just, for the benefit of those listening out there as well, and for my colleagues, to explain the role of the Audit Committee, Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee, and the role they have in decision making?
Through the Mayor, the Audit Committee have no decision making role at all. They are an advisory committee to the Council. And I'll just make the point again that this topic or this project has been on every agenda of the Risk and Audit Committee since pretty much day one. And they have been briefed to the extent that in relation to what is not commercial in confidence.
Right, so the benefit of having any of this information go to the Audit and Risk Committee really is of no consequence. It's not the wrong word. Whilst if we went back to the Audit and Risk Committee, the information they would be receiving is exactly what they've been receiving in the past and no more new information.
Through the Mayor, they could have an update in relation to some of the information contained confidentially in this report, which they haven't. However, in relation to the operating, back to Councillor Main's question, that has been briefed in some detail. So it's not correct to say they've got all the information, but it is correct to say that they have been briefed to the extent that they have at every meeting that they've had. And just to again confirm that they are not a decision-making body, they're an advisory committee.
No, so there would be no recommendation coming back from the Audit Committee on that. They would actually just have the information, that have a discussion, and then that's it. Is that correct?
They could make a recommendation as an advisory committee through the Mayor.
They could make them, yeah, but that means then they would actually wouldn't be in a position to make that fully brief because they wouldn't have all the information.
That could be correct.
So yeah, so they'd be advising in the absence of information. Okay, so the benefit would be nil. Right, okay.
Councillor Nathan.
Leading on from what Councillor Brown said, we as councillors in our briefings have very full information, I believe, over the years, and in particular over the last couple of months, that are confidential. We as the elected body who make the decisions have been thoroughly briefed. So to receive more opinion, because that is what it will end up, from the Risk and Audit Committee, and it's an opinion that is very useful in many occasions, but to get something further, my question is, would it actually change anything as far as the information that we as councillors have received in our briefings?
So there's no question in there, Councillor Nathan.
Yes, there was.
Sorry, what was the question? Well, okay, it's a subjective question. Okay, Councillor.
Will there be anything that comes from the Audit Committee that would be different to, or other than being an opinion, to the information that we as a council of 9 have received over the last 2 months?
Don't know, Councillor.
Well, through the Mayor, that would be a subjective. We would not be able to second guess what the Audit Committee might recommend, but as you say, they're not the decision-making body. I think Councillor McKinley.
Councillor McKinley, do you actually still have your hand up, or have you just? Thank you. I knew that. Others didn't. Councillor Mayne.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you. Could I just seek clarification on what Councillor Brown's comment? I effectively heard Councillor Brown saying that the Audit Risk Committee, without all the information, the benefit would be nil. For the public record, that's a really significant statement. That's basically saying our Audit Risk Committee has no effect unless it has 100% of information at all times. I don't think that was your intention, but just wanted to clarify that.
No, you're right.
Councillor Pollock.
The original question was on the operating costs of the pool. The operating costs have been fully briefed to the Audit and Risk Assessment Committee. The further question was, is the Audit and Risk Committee, are they going to be provided with any more factual data relating to the overall contract? The answer is no. They have been fully briefed on the business case by the consultant, as have all councillors who chose to make themselves available, as some did not. So they're the questions. So there is nothing more. It's a rhetorical situation. There is nothing more to be placed before the Audit Committee for them to make a more informed decision than they have already provided.
Okay, Councillor Constable, I think I'm going to ask you, I think we've exhausted all the questions and debate. Is that correct, councillors? Councillor Constable, I'll ask you if you would like to close the debate.
It's through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. I'd like to start out by indicating that this is an independent audit committee with independent thinking people on it that will bring. It won't necessarily be an opinion, but if it is an opinion, it'll be a very well educated opinion, because we had some very valuable people and constructive people on that committee. To diminish that is really reprehensible, and I admonish the councillors that have done so by influencing by what they've said today. What I'm getting at is not, we have spoken. Okay, the Audit Committee are a parrot. If they are a parrot for what they get from council, then nothing will change. This is not a parroting organisation. What I'm asking here is exactly what they're for. They are here for, to offer advice. I am concerned about the business case and the implications of the cash flow that we're going to be receiving from the business because of the implications of COVID and other further restrictions that may be in place down in future. I am also fairly concerned about the nature of the, how should I say, design and build, the adequacy of the air conditioning system and whether or not we will have to upgrade that air conditioning system. How long the social distancing stays in place has an enormous implication, as we've seen, on the pool functionality and obviously its cash flow, as well as its actual functionality of the art space. If masks are sufficient, and people are using masks now, and we can go into the art space and still share adjacent seats, that's fine. It might be okay, and particularly with an elevated air conditioning system. These are just a few of the things that have crossed my mind. I'm asking for assistance from those other very well-educated people to bring this forward. I'm not particularly worried. They can have what is the documentation that's gone out to tender. There shouldn't be any commercial confidence in that. It's irrespective of the tender. We're looking at the otium business case here in the future, and that's where my concern is. With that, I'll close the debate.
Thank you, Councillor Constable. All right, I will put the matter of the proposed motion to councillors. Those in favour? Those in favour are Councillor Constable, Councillor McGinley and Councillor Main. Those against are Councillor Tate, myself, Councillor Innes, Councillor Nathan, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Pollock and Councillor Brown. The motion has been lost.